Introducing you to people across North Carolina and around the world who put their Catholic faith into action. This is FaithWorks on Catholic 540 AM Divine Mercy Radio. Now, here's your host for FaithWorks, Ellen White.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of FaithWorks on Divine Mercy Radio. Our show highlights individuals through God's grace who put their faith into action daily. Amazing people who have an interesting, sometimes overlooked impact on our Catholic faith. On FaithWorks, we share their stories. I'm your host, Ellen White. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, someone who's made a profound impact both in the business world and in Catholic education and in education in general. Bob Luddy is a successful entrepreneur, founder of Thales Academy and the Franklin Academy, and a passionate advocate for truth, virtue, and moral formation. He's here today to talk about his powerful new book, Seeking Wisdom, The Road to Prosperity, a practical and philosophical guide that explores how freedom, discipline, humility, and faith can transform our lives and our culture. Whether you are a parent, an educator, a leader, or just someone trying to live with greater purpose, today's conversation will challenge and encourage you. Bob, welcome back to Divine Mercy Radio. Thank you so much for coming in.
Ellen, it's delightful to be with you today.
Oh, I always enjoy our conversations, and I certainly have, like I mentioned before we got started, enjoyed your book and spent some time with you over the last month or so and have really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for that.
Well, you've done a very thorough review. Congratulations.
Okay, so it seems like after years of experience as an entrepreneur, educator, and thinker, it's clear that this book represents something truly significant in your life's work. Would you say that Seeking Wisdom, The Road to Prosperity is your magnum opus? And if so, what motivated you to write a book that weaves together faith, freedom, leadership, and personal growth so comprehensively at this point in your journey?
So it absolutely is, and it's a composite of everything I have learned from every source throughout my lifetime and things that I've thought about. And I think one of the motivations was this idea that knowledge is power. We'll consult the experts. If I have one more credential, then I'll have it made and I'll proceed in the world. And there's nothing wrong with anything. We want to have as much knowledge as possible. But think about this idea that the ancient Greeks had far less knowledge than us, but far more wisdom. And I think I can make that case by saying we're still talking about Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates 2,500 years later.
Right.
Today, we have far more knowledge, but less wisdom. So this book was an attempt to say what we should really be doing is seeking wisdom, which is truth and the best ways of doing things in the world, which somehow don't receive the same emphasis. And if you think about it, we all have access to the same knowledge. It's universal. How that knowledge is used is what's important. And that requires some wisdom.
Let's start with just laying the foundation of our discussion here today, and also your book. You begin the book by tying freedom to both discipline and virtue. How do you define true freedom, and why is it so rare in history, do you think?
Well, certainly there's been scoundrels throughout history, people seeking power, people have put us in servitude. And from a freedom standpoint, even in the U.S. where we have relative freedom, you cannot maintain freedom without discipline. If you speed on the highway, you lose your right to drive on the highway, so you lose your freedom. If you don't obey civil law, same thing. If you don't obey the moral laws, you end up in total chaos.
That's true.
You might think the outcome's going to be wonderful, but we can witness it every day. It's on the top of the fold every single morning. It's total chaos. So we have the freedom to do the right things, which means being kind to people, growing our personal capabilities, serving everybody that we encounter. Some people ask these silly questions. Who should I serve? Serve everybody you encounter, just like Jesus did. It's really simple, okay? To the best of your ability.
Right.
Obviously, we can't serve the whole world, but within your capabilities, do your best you can to provide service to them and be that servant leader. And if you do, you'll be a very happy person, be a very satisfied person.
You talk about servant leadership a lot in the book. And I guess I've got a question for you, too, because this is something that's come up in my own life as a wife and a mother, and recognizing our own worth as individuals. I think that this is an interesting question for me. We're meant to love our neighbor as ourselves. So if we're not taking care of ourselves, maybe as the temple of the Holy Spirit, and we're constantly serving others, aren't we neglecting ourselves? This is kind of off topic at this point. It certainly wasn't part of it. So
that absolutely can happen. So first, we have to live our own lives to the best of our ability and continue to develop our moral life, our intellectual life, our interface with people.
Right.
So obviously we can't just go around all day long trying to serve other people when we don't even have the capabilities of doing that.
Yes.
So you have to develop personal capabilities financially, intellectually, morally to be a servant.
Right.
And that happens over the course of our lives. So when you're very young and in school, your obligation is to learn. Maybe when you first start your job or your family, you don't have a lot of resources. It's to the family. But eventually, if you're successful, you have more resources, you have more knowledge, you're able to expand your service to other people.
Yes.
So it's a long lifetime process.
Yes, it is. It doesn't happen overnight.
No,
for sure.
not at all.
So you said freedom without discipline results in chaos. What does a healthy balance between freedom and discipline look like in real life, especially for young people today? What would you say to that question?
I think the young people need to look forward and saying, where am I going to be in 5 to 10 years? And what are the things I need to do? So if they learn to respect their parents, their elders, people that can help them, they can dream some wild thoughts, and that's good, and that's part of youth, to break away from the current status quo. But if they're not developing themselves towards serious things and they're focusing on their own entertainment, it's not going to go anywhere. They're going to end up maybe doing that for 20 years. They wake up when they're 40 and they have a midlife crisis because they're nowhere. And now, if you don't use your time wisely when you're young, it doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And you can't make up that time.
Wait, what do you mean by that? If you don't use it wisely when you're young, it doesn't exist anymore?
Because it's at age 40, you have fewer options.
Yes,
you have family, you have children.
Right.
You're in a job, and you can't just leave that job and start a business or go to a new career.
Right.
Your options decline over time if you're not doing the right thing. Conversely, if you're in a self-development, your options are opening up as you get older. So it's very important for young people to study, learn, converse, try to develop their own capacity to eventually be that servant leader. But if you don't have any capacity, you really can't be a servant leader. But we've kind of already started to broach that subject.
Yes, and you talk a lot about humility as the foundation for moral growth. And, in a culture that rewards pride and self-promotion, we talk about being here in the United States. How can people rediscover the strength of true humility? Where would you say they need to start?
First of all, if you want to be a decent person, you have to be humble, or nobody's want to be around you. They want anything to do with you. And secondly, to realize in any given day, I can have a health problem, I can get run over by a car, terrible things can happen to my family. So at the very least, you want to do as many things correctly as possible to minimize adversity within your life.
And I think there might be some out there that don't really understand what humility is. They might think, and I certainly did when I was younger, that humility is maybe shortchanging yourself or not believing in yourself, not so much about being a magnanimous person and appreciating your own gifts, right? So how would you define humility? What would you say humility is?
I think humility begins with the openness to learn from everybody possible. So you may have a lot of ideas. Some may be good. Many probably aren't as good. If you think you have it all figured out, that's a sure sign that you have no humility. If you have humility, you're going to want to learn from people. You're going to want to think about what they taught you. And that doesn't mean you aren't developing your own point of view, your own ideas for the future, but you're engaging in a robust process as opposed to saying, this is what I think and it must be right. And we see that in our country almost universally.
And isolating yourself, not interacting with others, and thinking your ideas are better than everybody else's ideas. Yeah.
And being willing to be challenged.
Yes.
I told you recently we sent out a memo and we said, don't tell us you like what we're doing. Tell us what you don't like about what we're doing. Because we need that information. We want other points of view, things that we miss. And, if you work with a small group of people, it doesn't matter how intelligent they are, how well-informed they are. Within the group, there's people that know something that you don't know. And being willing to listen to that and saying, hey, would that work over here, is extremely important in a professional or a human development anytime.
Well said. Okay, so as far as your book goes, I really like the way you've got it set up with the different sections. And we'll talk about, first, moral formation and cultural challenges that we face. Then we'll get into leadership, relationships, and mentorship, and then execution, innovation, and the role of faith. And that's something that I really appreciate about you, Bob. And we've had discussions about this in the past where you talked about how though you're dealing with corporations that might not necessarily have a faith component themselves, they appreciate that fact about you. They really like the fact that they know that they can trust you, that you have integrity. You've built these relationships with these organizations over the years. They know that they can trust you. And that speaks volumes. So talk a little bit about that. Why do you think that's important?
About any relationship, if you don't have absolute integrity and trust, you don't have a relationship.
Right.
You have a relationship that's going to crash and burn.
Yes.
And you think within business is self-interested to succeed. So you can be working with somebody in the West Coast, you don't even know the person. There's a certain ethics within business. We're mutually striving to create some level of prosperity. And overall, it works very well. Now, someone who violates the moral trust, they're not going to be successful. They may have some near-term success. They're eventually going to be shunned. And they're going to wreck their own lives by lack of integrity. So if you don't start with integrity and virtue, out of the gate, you're not going to be successful. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how much you know. You will crash and burn. And that just has to be stated over and over again because we're human. We're subject to doing very dumb things.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. And you started with integrity and virtue, and you've certainly built Captive Air on those qualities, and also the schools that you're doing with these children and building the children from the ground up. I think it's so beautiful. All right, so moral formation. You write candidly that social media is the bane of our existence and that many schools have lost their purpose. I would agree. How are digital distractions and moral confusion affecting our ability to form virtuous leaders and thinkers, would you say?
Well, if you think about Facebook or Reddit or any of these, almost from the beginning, Facebook was involved in adverse thinking. And it can be nice to send photos to your relatives and to tell them about what's going on. But so much of what's on Facebook is very ugly, very disturbing. I've never used Facebook. I have no use for it at all. And then Reddit is just a whole bunch of people have opinions and argue all the time. It's essentially a waste of time. And that's why we emphasize truth-seeking. So one of the ways to think about truth is that truth has no conflicts and never changes. So the fact that we just discovered something that's truthful, it just didn't happen to be truthful today. It's been truthful forever. If you can understand that concept. We're constantly seeking the truth. Some things we think we know we're wrong. And so we're constantly trying to re-review what we think to make sure we have a grasp on the truth. Generally, if you encounter absolute truth, God wired our brains and our souls for truth. You have a sense this is the right answer, whether it's in science or human relations or anything else. So this idea of truth-seeking, it also leads into science. We want to know correct science. We're not interested in political science nonsense. But it's very easy as a human to kind of slide in and think you know when you haven't done it. You haven't worked hard enough to get the absolute truth.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that I first met you at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and you've written extensively about that in the book, and how much we have learned from that whole experience. So, and speaking of pandemic, you say relativism is a pandemic of untruth. Why is truth-seeking so central to education, and how can families or faith-based schools reclaim that mission?
And the only purpose of going to school is to learn the truth and to learn the best.
Boy, we've gotten away from that, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. If you think about the pandemic, there was so many lies told to the people from the political and scientific community that normal, intelligent, common sense people say, we can't trust these people, okay? We can't trust them at all. So we're going to be against all vaccines. Now, that's not the right answer. But you can see the adversity that came out of COVID and the many lies is going to go on for a long time to come. Many children lost the opportunity to improve their education. They developed bad habits. Many people fell into bad work habits. People worked at home for a long period of time. They actually lost their skills. They lost their ability to communicate and work within a team. So the outcomes were mostly terrible because it was a wrong decision based on non-truth.
I remember you saying in the midst of that, because it was right at the beginning when we first met, and you were talking about closing down the economy. And I said, well, it's just for a couple of weeks. And you said, Ellen, it doesn't. You don't flip a switch and have it come right back on once they decide to open up the economy again. And we certainly experienced that, didn't we?
Absolutely. Think about this. Even it's been stated that if you buy a car made on a Monday, it's probably not as good a quality if it was made later in the week. So even over the weekend, people lose that a little bit of the sharpness and skill.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you think of taking weeks off, think if you didn't do any interviews for a year or 2 years, you'd be almost starting over. You'd still have a good level of skill, but you lose some of that sharpness.
Sure. Yep.
So the idea of shutting down, if you shut down a production plant for 2 or 3 weeks, when you turn it back on, it's a startup. It's a relearning process, and it's incredibly slow. And the reason is scientific inertia. Inertia takes over. We've lost our rhythm.
How was Captive Air affected economically?
We did not shut down.
So you just kept going.
We just kept going. If somebody got COVID, said go home and come back in 2 weeks.
Right.
Nobody died.
Yes.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Most people actually did quite well with it. There's always a few that are a little skittish.
Right.
We gave individuals the option. If you want to take the shot, God bless you. If you don't, you don't take it. I don't care what the Supreme Court says.
Right.
And it worked out beautifully. And actually, it created a esprit de corps that we respect you as a human being.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly.
And people love that.
Wow. What a concept. All right. Okay, so you quote one of my favorite authors in the whole wide world, C.S. Lewis, about a generation of men without chests. What do you think is missing in the moral and emotional formation of young people today, and how do we fix it?
The only way we can fix it is strong moral leadership. To be able to stand up and say, this is wrong, okay? Here's the right way of doing things. So the last 5 years we've been infected with woke, It's caused tremendous problems within our society. We need people to stand up and lead and work hard toward good outcomes, the best possible outcomes. So essentially, you think our students today are being propagandized from every source you can think of, including the schools they go to. So every single individual has to do what they can to right the ship. That's the only way out. And strong leadership, the idea of working at home on the couch is not a good idea. We're human beings. We're meant to work with each other.
Absolutely.
Just being together generates new thoughts. My friend Adrian Bijan, the Duke physicist, says he calls it sparking. Somebody says something and it changes the way you think about something else. We're wired to do that. That's the way God created us. So the idea I can sit at my home on the couch with my computer and do just as good a work, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way.
Right. You got to get up and get moving, get outside, get around people, encourage each other. All right, if you're just tuning in, this is Ellen White with FaithWorks on Divine Mercy Radio. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Robert Luddy about his recent publication, Seeking Wisdom, The Road to Prosperity. We are grateful for our show's sponsor, Thales College. Okay, so leadership, relationships, and mentorship. You write about personalism, respecting each person's unique dignity. How does that idea shape the way we lead, especially in a world so quick to dehumanize others?
You know, the solution is in that broad category of human dignity. So, you know, this is true worldwide, but people within families, that's a special group. People within our religious group, they're more special. That's normal. Okay. But other people are different than we are. They have different points of view. They look different. They came from different backgrounds. And we have to remember they are human beings created by God. And while they're different and we may not like them as much as our own family, we have to respect them and we have to treat them with dignity. And that's some days that requires discipline, probably every day. But if we do that, life becomes simpler. And if we do it well, we may start to learn from those people and saying, wow, they knew some things I actually didn't know, or they do some things really well that we don't do as well. So there's some goodness there. We have to look for it. I think there's a tendency in modern society to look for what's wrong. And if you look at the example of Jesus, he was looking for what was good within that person, and he was trying to take them to a higher level constantly. So this whole idea of bashing everybody that ever made a mistake, well, that's everybody on the planet, okay? It's a waste of time. We need to find out the goodness, to encourage goodness. If they're doing something wrong, it's fine to say you're wrong about, don't do that again. And Jesus did that. Don't do it again, okay?
Yep.
That's the whole basis of Christianity.
Yeah, I just had this conversation with my daughter yesterday, actually. And, you know, I have also heard, too, Bob, that when we're criticizing others, it's usually a reflection of something that we are struggling with ourselves. So what is it that we're criticizing others about? And maybe that's a point for self-reflection, too.
Can I quote from Lily von Hildebrand? She told me this personally, be very slow to criticize.
Yes, exactly.
If we just remember that every time, we'll do so much better.
I remember you saying that previously. Be slow to criticize. Okay. So one of your key themes is that virtuous leadership requires vision, courage, and humility. What's the first step of someone who wants to grow into that kind of a leader, regardless of their title?
Working on virtue and good habits. So understanding what virtue is, and you're your own best judge of yourself. Just go down the menu and say, how do I stack up here? Or look at the saints and say, I was just reading about St. Ignatius. And in that time frame, they wanted to be martyred because they wanted to sacrifice their life for God. How many of us measure up there? None of us, right? So just the fact that you think about, can you imagine this human willingly was martyred for Jesus? And I'm not even willing to follow the commandments some days. Then you start thinking, I better improve. And it better be fast.
Virtues. And I've also heard, too, that if you have children, that you can also ask your children what virtues you struggle in, and they would be quick to tell you where you're struggling with your virtues.
They know every one. They can give you chapter and verse.
Okay. And, speaking of vision, too, and taking a step back and seeing clearly in which direction you want to go, it takes time. And I know you personally spend time every day separated away from, your various responsibilities and reflect quietly. Talk a little bit about that. How effective is that for you, and how long have you done that?
It's very effective to dream about what could be and how I can make that happen. And if you look at the really great people in the world, many of them from a very young age, Aquinas would be one example, St. Thomas Aquinas. The guy we were just talking about, Diesel. From a young age, he was motivated to do good things. So his whole life was about learning and doing to make that contribution. Now, that's an extraordinary skill, and these are extraordinary people, but we can learn from them. We can be more like them. But if you're not thinking about it and you're not engaged in it, it's not going to happen.
Right.
I like to quote my mother. She said, if you're not doing it today, you're never going to do it.
I love that.
Get started today. Don't give me a list of things you're going to do in the future. That's mostly a bunch of nonsense. Get on it right now. The whole basis of Captivare and Thales is we do it immediately to the extent that we can. And we love it. And we thrive on it.
And in the book, you mentioned an experience where there was, if a customer reaches out to you late in the afternoon and there's a problem, you don't leave until the problem is addressed.
That's ingrained in our system.
Yeah, that's great.
As a matter of fact, I just had a call here on the way over, and I said, well, I'm timed out. As soon as I get through my interview, I'm on it. I'll fix it for you. And he said, terrific.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a great approach. And I love what your mom said, too. Do it today. Don't procrastinate. All right. You also emphasize the importance of mentors. What role have mentors played in your own life, Bob? And what should listeners look for in a wise guide or advisor?
An enormous role in my life. And some of it, I like to say the best opportunities are right in front of us all the time. We have to recognize them, and we have to take action. So in the last 4 months before I was in the Army, I was working for a gentleman that was very successful, very bright, and I was able to somewhat attach myself to him for the sole purpose of learning from him. And I still think of today of that man, what a beautiful experience that I could learn from this master. More recently, I saw an interview of Adrian Bijan. So an economist was interviewing a physicist, and he said, this is kind of unusual, but we want to interview you because you understand markets. So I called Duke University, asked for a meeting. I was able to get the meeting, and here we are 4 years later. Adrian Bijan and I were good friends. We help each other. So you have to take action. It's we say the alertness, paying attention, thinking, come to conclusions. But if you don't take any action, you're wasting your time. And most people fail to take the action that they know they should take.
Taking the action, I've always heard that, as Catholic Christians, sometimes the approach can be, well, I'm going to do this novena, I'm going to pray. I mentioned this in previous interviews too. And then just wait for God to work. But you can't lean on the shovel and say the prayers. You actually have to pick up the shovel and use the shovel.
We got to be working all the time.
Got to be working. All right. So let's shift a little bit from mentorship to execution, innovation, and the role of faith. You say that success depends on real-time execution and the elimination of distractions. Boy, that's hard in this day and age. What habits or mindsets have helped you stay focused and finish strong in business and in life?
Well, I'll give you...
But you're not done yet, so...
Oh.
No.
I read this book. It's called Father and Son and Company. It was about T.J. Watson, who was the prime mover of IBM. And every day he came to work, he would have a yellow pad, and he would have 5 or 6 things he was going to accomplish that day. And people would ask him, well, why aren't you paying attention to this or that or something else? People would want to distract him. He'd say, look, my mission is to get these things done. When they're done, I'll move to other priorities of the day if I can get them accomplished. But he did not allow people to take over his day. So think about it. If somebody calls you on the phone, they email you, they may be distracting. They may have something good to tell you, but they also may be distracting the mission of the day. And I deal with this every day. I'm getting, 150 emails and phone calls, and people want things done. But I have to keep in mind, there's important things I need to do today, including this interview, and they have to be done.
Yeah.
And somebody else cannot take over those priorities. Now, people coming to us can give us new priorities, and they can be very important in our life, but you have to sort all that out. If you didn't get your work done today, why would you be working on new priorities?
Yes.
That's a way to look at it.
Right. Yes. Wow. And having to balance, I'm just trying to put myself in Bob Luddy's head and try to figure out how I can determine what is priority and what isn't, and moving on to the next thing. I mean, the list is always there, right?
It's always growing. And you have to be quick. At the Fort Bragg Bayonet School, they talked about the quick and the dead. And I kind of use that as an analogy. In the modern world, it moves quickly. In my world, it moves so fast that you don't have time to spend too much time. And many times, Adrian Bijan taught me, he said, your first thought is probably going to be the right answer. Okay. So many times we've got the right answer, but then we're going to go hash it and discuss it. And in the world I live in, you can't do that. You have to make a decision.
And with the distractions that we have, I think another answer to that would be just to get rid of the distractions. And like you, with Facebook, I tuned in initially, and then it kept becoming a near occasion of sin for me. So I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. So I haven't been on for 15, I don't even know when it came out. I was on for a little bit. But it's such a time waster, and the same with endless scrolling, and it's
a total waste of time.
Total waste of time.
I've got some young guys I know, and they just said, we're blocking all that out. We're going to read books. We're going to go to discussion. We're going to take care of our families. This is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
And those young men are doing extraordinarily well.
Okay, so go ahead. No, you go ahead.
And they're very pleasant to be around. When you're developing yourself, people want to be around you. They want to help you, okay?
Yes.
I've noticed that many people want help. They also have to be willing to do something. And if they're not willing to do anything, we're not required to help them whatsoever. And we should not help them because we're really not helping them.
That is such a great point. And you can also feel when people are distracted, Bob. If their mind is going in a ton of different directions, they are not going to be as focused on you. And likewise, you won't have the ability to help them because they're so distracted on other things. All right. So you also write that the future belongs to those who are never satisfied with the status quo. How do we foster creativity and entrepreneurial thinking, especially among young Catholics or just the young in general?
Well, we call Kaizen continuous improvement.
I love that.
But you have to remember the first rule of Kaizen, it must be an improvement. So if you're going to make a change, it has to improvement. Very often we see people saying, I'm thinking outside the box, and they're really not thinking at all. They're just doing something different. That's not what Kaizen is. Some things come to us very quickly and we can implement them. Other things take more time. Once you have this idea embedded in your head, it's fun. Fix things gone wrong. If it's not working, it's going wrong. Figure out a way to make it better. You don't have to be a fanatic about it. It's just a routine. I didn't make my bed today. That's not a good thing. I'm going to make it tomorrow. I didn't smile at somebody. I just acted like an old grump. I'm going to fix that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it's simple things.
Yeah. That's such a great
And that gets us into a nice rhythm where we can do bigger things over time.
Throughout the book, you return to the idea that a close relationship with God is essential to gaining wisdom. Can you share how your own spiritual life has influenced your leadership, your schools, and your outlook on prosperity?
I think we need to start by saying, observe things that God is doing for us that actually work out. And they're pretty obvious every single day. One One of the things I just learned recently from Michael Pukalik, who's a professor at Catholic University, that God can make something different than the form that we see. So we say when we're receiving Holy Communion, we see a host, and we're told this is God. Our human mind has a hard time to understand that, but he actually explained to us. He also brought up a point of when God was walking on water, he could just make the surface hard. So we see water, but he's on a hard surface. So the form and substance.
Okay. That's deep. That's incredible. Yeah.
So trying to come up with a deeper understanding, and most people, there's so much chaos and noise that they never get to a deeper understanding of everything. So they just have some kind of answer, and that's what they work with. The more you use your brain, the more you read and study, the more you discuss, argue with other people, the more you're forming your thinking capabilities. That has to be a lifelong process. Most people, for whatever reason, fail to engage in it because they feel like, I've learned these things and that's what I work with. It's a good start. But if we're not improving, some of the things that we've learned are wrong. They're incorrect, or they have changed. You can have a perception that might be 20 years old and the fact may be, well, 18 years ago that changed. Oh, I didn't. It happens to all of us.
Yes, right.
Many times we're just working on perceptions, not on facts or not on truth. So we have to strive harder. And that's why we say you're a truth seeker. You're constantly seeking truth. You're constantly checking yourself. You're looking for better solutions. We do it all day long, every day. And be grateful to God for where you're at. Even though you might say, I'm not in the best place, but you're alive. You're relatively free. The gratitude, I think it's a platform that you grow from. If you're unhappy with everything and you're not grateful, you don't have any real platform to grow from. These are hard concepts, and they take a long time to develop.
Now, with your own spiritual journey, though, Bob, did you start out this way? Is this what your belief system was? Or was there a specific point in your life as an adult where you recognized this is what my central focus is, and I'm going to be going off from that?
Well, it probably started when I formed Captive Air at age 31.
Okay.
And eventually, the spirituality saying regardless as busy as you are, you have to pray every day.
Yeah.
And you can see the results of that prayer if you're paying attention. You may not get everything you want when you want. That's never going to happen. But you can see positive things happen in your lifetime. You can witness people helping you. So I think both intellectually and spiritually, it's got to be continuous growth. And I think one of the things that gets overlooked, we're all slow learners, okay? I don't care how smart you are. I don't care where you came from. We learn very slowly. That's the way our minds work. But if we're not working on that process, we're not growing. People think, oh, yeah, I just digest this thing immediately. I understand it. No. We've been involved in commercial HVAC and ventilation for almost 50 years. We're learning every day. And the senior engineer and myself, once in a while, will say, what the heck is wrong with us? Why didn't we know this 20 years ago? Why didn't we know it 10 years ago?
It's amazing.
That's the process of discovery, just like a young child.
I wonder if that's what keeps you so young. Are you ever tired? I guess that would be my main question for you today. Do you ever get tired?
No, I never get tired mentally.
Yes, I can see that.
I mean, I may get tired physically.
Yeah.
But sometimes we just have to push through things, and we're motivated to do them. In the book I just read, that was the case. You're tired. You might be a little bit discouraged. You need that perseverance to keep moving forward. All cases, you're moving forward.
Through it. So
the burnout idea to me doesn't compute in my little brain.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah, that's very evident in what I see in front of me. All right. So if a listener feels overwhelmed by cultural noise, moral confusion, or lack of purpose, what's one or two steps, practical steps they can take today to begin living a life of wisdom, virtue, and impact?
Well, first of all, get off the merry-go-round and ignore the secular world.
Yeah.
Secondly, begin by saying your prayers, reading some books, and make some fair observations of society. So, for example, you can go to any city in the U.S., and you can see wonderful people doing really good things. But you're not going to hear about that on by watching Fox News, okay? You won't hear about it a single time. Generally, people are good. Start seeing the goodness within our society, and that will encourage you to be part of that process. But you have to be willing to say, I'm getting a divorce from secular society. I'm not going to live on a merry-go-round. And all this sort of gossip and nonsense that's going all day long, I'm done with it. It's not going anywhere. I had some friends from Virginia, and they said they spent 20 years in politics trying to make it better. And they said at the end of 20 years, they found out they were worse off. So they decided to these are grown, intelligent men. They decided to help with our schools because they realized that was more important than being involved in politics, and et cetera.
Well, and aren't you glad? You said that in the book, that you had an idea that you wanted to get into politics, and one of your mentors had said no.
He said absolutely not. And he worked hard with me to say, you can contribute so much more in the private sector.
Yes.
Don't let me down on this issue.
Yeah, as is evident with what you've done with the educational system. Okay, so you also end the book with a powerful conclusion, and I appreciated the challenge yourself section very much, your recommended reading list, and I couldn't help but notice that one of my favorite books of all time is on there, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and you recommended that at a graduation several years ago. I'd never heard of it, and I picked it up, and that started our friendship. But Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, published in 1962. I highly recommend it. And, you introduced me to the whole concept of emotional intelligence, which is, I've barely scratched the surface on that. And I think that that's something that warrants a lot of, and you've mentioned it quite extensively in your book. So Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ by Daniel Goleman. And several other, and I love The Virtuous Leadership by Alexander Havard.
That's one of the best books out there.
Yes.
On virtuous leadership. Man's Search for Meaning. I have an intellectual friend, and I asked him if he ever read this book, and he said, I read it every 10 years just to be regrounded. I thought, see, again, I learned a lesson from him. He didn't say I read it and I understand it.
Yes.
He said, I continuously read it. It keeps me grounded. This is a very intellectual, very bright person. So you learn these messages are coming through, but you need to pay attention, okay? What did I just learn?
Right.
I learned I needed to read it at least every 10 years. Maybe I need to read every 5 years.
And being present, I think, being present with whoever God has placed in front of you at this moment right now, and also being authentic, not trying to be somebody that you're not. Be who you are.
Authenticity is huge.
Yes.
And, people who are authentic and truthful, you want to be around them.
Right. Exactly.
Because they're delightful people. You're learning from them. And you want to be attached to them.
Yes, I agree.
So that's a good take home for this interview.
Okay. Any other final thoughts besides being authentic?
We're all human. We all make mistakes. And sometimes we beat each other. We beat up ourselves because we made a mistake. God fully understood this. Okay, He designed a religion that says you're going to make mistakes. If you're contrite, I'll forgive you. The idea is to continue to try to perfect yourself, even though we'll never be perfect. We're working toward it. And if you do it, you're going to be happy. You're going to make enormous contributions. And you can read chapter and verse about the saints and famous people that did this already. And they're the bright light that kind of keeps us moving in that direction, whether it's Thomas Aquinas or Ignatius or hundreds of saints, St. Catherine of Siena.
I was just going to say her.
Just completely amazing people.
Yes, if you be who you are.
Obscure people, and they just did such amazing things.
Yes.
God has a different role for every one of us. Doing the simple things right within our family and our community is a role for most of us. So get on that path and do it, and you'll be happy.
Yeah, and utilize these amazing gifts that God has left us in His church with the sacraments, especially with Sacrament of Confession, as we continue to work on improving our own life virtuously, and also with receiving Him in the Eucharist. So, Bob, my gosh, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experiences, and your deep commitment to forming virtuous leaders.
It was a delight to be with you today, Ellen.
Your book, Seeking Wisdom, The Road to Prosperity, is more than a reflection. It's a call to action for anyone who wants to live with greater purpose, clarity, and service to others. For those listening today, I highly encourage you to pick up a copy of the book. The final chapters, including the Challenge Yourself section, recommended reading, and the key concepts for growth, are packed with practical steps to help you apply these ideas in your daily life. You can find the book wherever books are sold or visit thalespress.org. And remember, freedom begins with discipline, wisdom starts with humility, and true leadership is always rooted in service. If you missed any part of this episode or want to catch up on past conversations filled with inspiration and hope, you can find them all at divinemercyradio.org. Just click on local shows. And don't forget, you can take FaithWorks with you wherever you go. Just download the free Divine Mercy Radio app from your app store. Simply search Divine Mercy Radio and see, and you're all set to listen anytime, anywhere. Until next time, keep living your faith boldly, because faith works. God bless.